Hello, people that have loud amps. If you want to know all the ins and outs and features of the Boss, well, there's so many, the Boss Waza TAE, the Boss Waza Tube Amp Expander, watch part number 1 of this series where I unbox it and really go through all the features, and you don't even hear sound. Now, this video is going to deal with a couple of features, and it's going to deal with a couple of things you can do with it, and we're going to show that. But before we do that, here's about 10 minutes plus of some classic-y amps, non-master volume amps, Marshallies, Voxies, and Cleansies, with the different of classic-y guitars, and sounds from the TAE direct, and what you can expect to get from it. So watch that first before we go into the nitty-gritty. Well, wasn't that fun? It was fun for me to play. So now what's left? Well, we're not going to look at the software in detail because that's video number 4, where we really look at what the software can do and EQ functions, how to change miking positions and all that stuff. We're not going to do that now. So we're going to look at a couple of other things that it can do. Namely, blowing up in a good way a small amp. Next to it, I've got a Blackheart Killer Amp, which is an amazing amp, but that is a 1 watt amp. So we can plug that straight into here. It doesn't have an effects loop or any of that. But of course, we can give it an effects loop after the fact with the TAE. And we're going to find a good setting with the reactive load and then show that it can actually be gig volume using the TAE. But that comes a little bit later. We're going to see what the foot switch can do, and I think we should start with that. I haven't actually checked out these, but I think I can. This is a really complex wiring thingy here. Actually, let's go into this. How do I have it wired? I'm sorry for all these videos, and sorry for the length of the videos, but if you're willing to spend the money, you should know everything. This is a complicated piece of gear. So if we look at the back, I have it left and right, so I'm running it stereo into the computer. The difference between these and the mono FOH out is that this, well, A, is a mono sum of these two, and B, it's not affected by the line level knob on the front. It has a fixed level that you can, I don't know if you can set that up, but it says in the manual it's a fixed level to the front of house, so that's not affected by what you're doing for your stage volume right here. That is affected by the knob on the front. So I'm going into my interface, which in this case is an Apollo Twin. I've got the output from my ampere switcher right here, which means that's coming from the amps. Max 150 watts, that's good, which means it'll work with the big Dietzels and Mesas and all that stuff. I have speaker out, which is going to the Dixon aluminum cab, Scott Dixon, behind me. And so then down here, amp control is actually going to the Friedman small box to see if we can program it to switch my amp channel. There is an input from the foot switch, USB going to the computer, and I have stuff right here, these two delays, in the effects loop. Okay, back to me. It's already quite a bit of confusing wiring. So the first thing that I want to show you is how to switch an amp on presets on the thing. So here is my Shabbat Lion DX, which is an amazing guitar. Something that's probably not applicable to you, but something that you should know about. If it's actually really close to your guitar, this happens. So, I don't know if that's something that's ultra specific to the P90s. I mean, there are, of course, P90s, they do something, but there's something coming from the TAE that does that. What are the chances that wherever you play with the TAE, you have the guitar this far away from it? None. But I still point it out. So right now I'm in the Friedman small box, right there behind. Thank you, Leslie. Right there. Could have been easier. First, let's find a good reactive load setting. And there is a little bit of a thing on top right here that helps me figure out rectifier stack, high gain stack, bridge stack, classic stack. I'm gonna go with bridge stack. It says high and high. Let's see. Gets a little bit bullier, like a little bit more responsive in the low end. The differences of the reactive loads are very subtle, and they're more felt than heard, so don't expect for you to actually hear a big difference. Can of course take the volume down. If I now hit amp control on my foot switch or on the amp, because I have the amp control out in the foot switch input, which you actually can see on the Friedman because it's on the front. There's a cable going in on the front right there under the input. Very convenient. I can switch the channels, and that's really all that the Friedman has. The amp control is only one switching function, which if you have a multi-channel amp, you have to use some kind of MIDI thing. But if it's a channel back and forth, it can easily do that. So by clicking amp control on the front of the box, but the cool thing is you can actually combine that with a preset. Let's say I'm gonna go to that's something probably like a smaller cab. So if I go from number 8 to number 1, it's saved by simply hitting the save button on it right there. So it remembers the channel on your amp, which is really cool for live. So we have, oopsie. Now, obviously, that is something that you can easily do right here with amp control. And I just switched my amp. But if I now go to rig by holding this in, so I'm on 1, where it is remembered, and I hold this in to go to 8, where it isn't. So much stuff. So yeah, you don't really need MIDI. You can actually access all 10 rigs from right here. Then you can turn the effects loop on and off. Effects loop on and off. And if I hit delay, it turns the effects on and off. And I can actually tap from right here. Let me see if that works. Yeah, it's that simple. You've got tappable delay from Boss in the thing. You can turn it on and off. You can turn the external effects loop on and off. Let's do that. Either with the foot switch or directly on the unit itself. And the cool thing is that when the foot switch is selected, both work. The actual hardware works and the foot switch. It's not like on some things where as soon as the foot switch is connected, you can't do anything on the panel anymore. No, they both work. So right now, I've got my effects on top because the effects loop is on, but they're not on. That's the internal reverb. I turn that off. Dry as a bone. I turn this reverb on. There are a lot of things on the back that you can select. So there's parallel, serial, there's plus, minus, 4, plus whatever, for ground lift. There's a lot of things. Getting it to work with them was a little bit of a fiddle of settings. But now, that's great. So if they're on, let's see. So with the effects off, but the effects loop on, there's no difference. Did you see what just happened? I turned the effects loop off, but it only turns the input, the send off, because I have trails. You can probably program that, I'm not sure, but we'll find out in the software, which is in the next video. So yeah, that's cool. Well, you got trails. And what just happened is, I have a cranky amp. I have that Friedman, which is all cranked and blown up. And I'm putting these huge effects behind my amp. That is awesome. The only way that you would be able to do that is record it into a console and put rack effects or something on there. Here you can use your pedal board behind the power amp of your amp. That is the special thing. And if I now go and I'm going to turn the line out off, and now you're hearing the mic'd cab. This is a mic'd cabinet. We're gonna do that again because I was totally overblowing the input of my audio interface. I'm sorry, gotta be careful with the levels. Yes, any kind of effect you want, well, right behind your amp, and then send with the built-in power amp to a cabinet on stage. So even if you're not using the DI out, which, you know, you could go into front of house, even if you're miking an amp, there are a lot of benefits to having a TAE. A TAE. A two-band expander thing. So, built-in effects, yes. To both things. And then external effects, yes. Amp control, yes. Amp control, savable with your preferred cab or settings. Let's not even talk about internal cab and go into front of house. Just internal effects with switching your amp. I mean, just in a normal live mic cab setup, totally still an advantage having the TAE. With the foot switch, which is about $100, very easy, or the whole thing with MIDI. And then save effects, volumes, save volumes, not volume. See, when you usually have a volume kick with a boost or something, either you have it in front of your amp and that makes your amp more cranky, but not really louder. If you have it in the effects loop of your amp, if your amp even has an effects loop, it makes it louder, but also pushes the power amp more. So it doesn't only make it louder, it also changes the sound. Here, when you have a solo volume, it literally takes the amp sound the way it is and makes it louder with a built-in power amp into your cab. So you have a real solo volume that doesn't change your sound, which is something to be said for. So we're gonna now do the last thing, which is we take a little 1-watt amp. And that is usually, it's not super quiet, but it's not something you can use in a band. That's not something you can really use live. That's not something that you would actually use outside of a studio where this thing is killer, or a bedroom situation. So let's see how the killer ant performs here. So fully blown up, this is kind of a Marshall's thing now. And at the same volume where the power amp was set earlier, you can hear that there isn't a lot coming out of the speaker. So you're only hearing the speaker right now. I'm gonna get the line out in there as well. haha. I'm like, why isn't there that much volume? There's very, very low volume on the line out. Well, because the TAE is switched in the back to 100 watts. I'm gonna have to take that down. So let's see. Line out down again. Gotta be careful now. Let's go in the back. So I'm gonna take that down to 10 watts and see how it reacts now. Ah, better. So I got my Thomann behind it, I got my built-in effects, I have an EQ on it. And all this behind the actual tiny, very inexpensive little 1 watt amp. Now, is price gonna be an issue here saying, oh wait, I got a great amp for 150 bucks. Let's buy a 1,300 euro piece of gear to make it louder. No, it is a matter of you having something that you love, the sound that you crave live, and you want it louder. And it can do that, that's the only thing. I haven't even really cranked this up. It can probably be... Ow. Yes, it can be very loud. So of course I can go line out and have different kind of that's a 1 watt amp, people. Now I turned all these amps on, I don't know why, because we've already done this, but here's a clean sound from the Tone King. So here's the Tone King, in this case probably with a 412-y kind of a thing. Which I probably wouldn't go for. Let's go to setting number 2. They all don't sparkle enough for me, but have a lot of low end, which I don't really need here. That's better. Big mid boost there. Ah, beautiful. Gonna blend in my normal speaker now. Gonna put in external effects and turn the Thomann on. I just did. That's just amazing. Use a beautiful reverb from the Boss built-in. Add the Thomann for some sparkly analog delay pitching. Use the best sound I can get from the Tone King, but make it loud with the built-in, and then also pick a beautifully modeled cab going DI. Mix the two together, and holy crapola. And then I play shit. Well, the Boss can't help you when you play shit. Where else can we go? We can go to the Marshall mini plexi up there. So all the pros and cons of these amps, or all the cons of these amps, are not there anymore. They don't have an effect loop. I don't care. I've got it in there. You get the thing. AC20. Marshall JCM 800. Yeah. So that's showing some classic-y kind of sounds, some cleans, all that stuff, and showing you what you can do with a non-master volume amp, with a amp that doesn't have an effects loop, with external effects, with an amp that might not be so loud. Most modern amps are probably louder, but then you might, I don't know, you might have a tiny terror. You get the whole idea. There's a lot of potential in expanding, I'm not making this shit up, expanding the possibilities of your tube amp with the tube amp expander. I didn't get, when I first saw this, that this is its strength. I thought it's trying to be another Aux, another Torpedo Studio. And in a way it is that, but that's not really the strength. It is expanding your capabilities with an actual amplifier. That's pretty damn dope. So next one is gonna be, how good is it for high-gainy modern stuff? For that, I will have to try to play high-gainy modern stuff. But we'll see. Next video, well, at some point. Links below, and animals at the end.